Good morning, Massey family. It's Cassandra, and I'm doing another installation of our Interview a Genealogist series. And this morning, I have the absolute pleasure of having Bernice Bennett on. And if you know anything about genealogy, you know that's a big, big deal. And so I'm going to speak with her just for a few minutes about a couple of things. But Bernice, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Bernice Alexander Bennett, and I have roots in South Carolina and Louisiana. And I've been engaged in genealogical research, I want to say forever. I was maybe destined to do this, but I also have a background in public health. I worked in public health for 35 years, and when I retired, genealogy is my passion, and that's where I've spent the rest of my time.
All right. And just so everyone knows, she's an author. She has a BlogTalk radio show. And what's the name of that show?
It's called Research at the National Archives and Beyond, BlogTalk Radio.
Excellent. And funny story, I was looking for a genealogist to help find someone, and I hired Christopher Smothers from Atlanta, Georgia. And I was doing a little bit of research on him, and lo and behold, he was one of your talk show persons. And so I said, who's this Bernice Bennett? Let me check her out. And that was my introduction to you and all the great work that you do. So thank Christopher Smothers for that one.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, and he's so much fun.
He is. He's a sweet guy, really nice guy. All right, so let's get to the questions here. I started making a golden series for our family, which is basically I go in and I interview some of our older family members to try and preserve some of the history. What is your take on oral history?
Well, first of all, I want to just say, and I'm going to give you a quote, and this is a Dick Gregory quote. Okay. Of himself and his heritage is like a tree without roots. And so I had oral history and going to the elders as an opportunity to share with us what's happening from the root up. And extremely important that we preserve the root and understand just where we came from.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so how important is it for families to gather and try to preserve that history? I know that sometimes I've seen where family members have just gotten rid of a family home, thrown everything out that was inside the family home. And I was just like, oh my God, all that history that was in that house, just anything. So how important is it for families to actually preserve the different documents or things?
Quote, and this is a Nigerian quote. Not to know, not to want to know is worse. Not to hope is unthinkable, and not to care is unforgivable. And so what you want to do is to care. You want to care about the information that has been gathered by your family and not throw it away. And I've seen that. I've seen people just throw away pictures. They end up in an shop, but just throw away documents when somebody dies. And what they're doing is they're throwing away history.
Yes.
And so you want family members to do is to preserve that information as much as possible, or put it in the hands of somebody else that will appreciate it and can record it so that later on, when you're gone, that information. So you want to care.
Yes. Yes, that's great. That is awesome. And you said it was a Nigerian quote?
It is a Nigerian proverb, absolutely.
Okay, that is beautiful. Okay, what are some of the things that you find most important for people to actually preserve? I know one of the things I asked my father for, since he kind of spearheaded all of this, was to every obituary he has, keep it and be ready to send it to me when I ask for it. So I just feel like those are like some of the most important documents. But what other documents do you find is really important for preserving?
I also feel important to preserve, in addition to obituaries, are pictures, family pictures with the names on the back. How many times have you looked in a photo album and you don't know who you're looking at? Yeah. Especially those really, really old pictures. Somebody forgot to write them down.
Right.
Which means looking at this picture and saying, well, who is this? And you don't have to really show the picture too. I recall talking to my father's first cousin. And my question to her was, do you have any pictures of my grandmother? And my grandmother passed away in 1932, and 1928 at the age of 32.
Okay.
Which, if there were any pictures, it would be pictures of her very young. Well, my wonderful surprise, I received old pictures in the mail.
Wow.
And if at a picture, it was 1908.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and it's something that I probably would never have received if I had not asked the question, do you have? And she, on the back, it said, my brother's girls, and it named them Julia, because it was two. It was my grandmother and her sister, Julia and Maddie.
Oh, wow.
And so that's why it's so important to me to tell you that you must preserve the old pictures. Don't throw them away because it's too much. Even those who are taking all of these pictures on their cell phones, get pictures out of your cell phones.
Right.
Whatever you can do.
Right.
So yes, pictures one thing, obituaries another thing. To my surprise, I went into it was like a basket, something that my mother had, and she had her school records from like 1925.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. Can you imagine seeing a school record? But to her, that was important. I now have.
Right.
And I would say preserve your school records. You may think it's just not something that family members would want to have, but it does give you a look into the life of what your ancestor went through as far as school is concerned. Military records. I'm a military brat. So it's very important to know, when did my father serve, where did he serve, what pictures he has, because that's part of your family history to have that. And then very much involved in the church. Find those programs where your family members were involved in the church and they had to get up and they had to tell stories and their names are listed. Programs. I mean, that's a part of your life, to be able to have that. And so, it's a lot. You can go from one document to the other, but that old family Bible,
those are great.
Even if you the Bible, start one.
Right.
Start one, even if the date is 19, right now, I would say, 2020. You can then start writing that information in the family Bible, record who's putting it in there. If you know what the sources said, at least you're starting to put something in. You're starting a tradition.
That's awesome. And what's interesting is my mom, just off, like you said, asking, we said, do you got any old documents or anything? And she goes, oh yeah, I got a bunch of love letters I wrote to your dad when he was away in the military. And we were like, oh my God. And so, at some point in the future, we'll be able to read those because they preserved them. And he kept all the letters that she sent him. And I thought that was absolutely beautiful. And So you're absolutely right. The other thing with the family Bible, I'm trying to locate the slave owners for our family. And from what I understand, there are 2 family Bibles, but I can't get a hold of anyone. And that would help me to see, if we can go further back, if they've got some kind of documentation in the Bible. So, because sometimes they did record the slaves, births and different things. So they're very interested in that new tradition. They're going to start some new traditions. I like that a lot.
I was going to say one thing that I
Go
want to
ahead.
encourage you is to take pictures of your hands,
Mm-hmm.
the hands of the descendants. Take the pictures.
Oh, wow.
Because once people are gone, they're gone. So I started something with my mother, my granddaughter, my son, and my daughter, that we would take the pictures of our hands.
And so what does that do? Why would you take pictures of your hands?
Loving hands, because I'll never see those hands again touching me. And we started the tradition of taking hands. And I can recall telling my girlfriend, take a picture of your hands with your mother and your grandmother, and those people are no longer here.
Wow.
But to go behind that, on this day we took pictures of our hands and named who. It's just a tradition. I mean, people do different.
Right. That's awesome. And I am trying to start a group of traditions. I put some family values out there for our family, because we started off thinking we were all one branch, and then we come to find out we're, 5 branches. And so to bring all of us together, I kind of want us to have some new values, combined values and traditions. So I'm excited about that. So thank you for those 2 tips. I was going to ask you, what can a person do to contribute to, preserving the history? And those are 2 great things. Anything else?
Yes, they can tell, anecdotal stories or remember when stories.
Okay.
Because some of those traditions to disappear.
Right.
And it's always to do remember when, and have people go around and they can tell whatever story they need to tell. But there's always remember when somewhere something happened.
That's awesome. Well, Bernice, I would love to sit here and just learn everything you got in your brain, but I won't hold you too long. I did want to say again, happy birthday to you. Thank you so much for sharing your birthday today with us. And thank you for coming on.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye.